Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Day 2 of Summit. Please put your hands together for Mike Cannon-Brooks.
How we doing? Are we on? Are we pumped? Good. Now we've lost about half of the audience. That can be one of maybe four things. Either A, you're Apple fans and you didn't like my gags at Steve Jobs' expense. B, they're all watching the first game of the World Cup, which was great planning on our behalf. C, they didn't like yesterday. Oh, silence. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Or D, they're just a little bit hungover and have gone to the coffee shop, and we hope to see them dribbling in throughout the morning. So we do have a pretty exciting morning for you today. We're going to take you through a little bit of how all of our applications can kind of tie together and try to paint you a little picture. Hopefully have some fun with it, paint you a little bit of a picture about how you can see the path through all the various different applications, and again, how they help you with that concept to launch cycle, be it at the release level, the iteration level, or at the individual feature level. We're going to go through some of our hosted tools and specifically some of the hosted integrations we've done and how that's going to map to hopefully to your business. We're going to talk to you a little bit about support. Again, support is very important to us as a company, always has been since day one. We actually started as a support company. So we're going to show you some of the changes we've got in support, some of the things that have happened over the last year, and some of the things we've got coming up. And then I'm going to try and close out with just a little bit of what you might see over the next year between now and the time that we meet again in 12 months' time. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Tim Buntel, who's the product manager for our development tools, who's going to take you through a little bit of a journey about how our products can help you with concept to launch and going to have a little bit of fun with it. So here's Tim.
Morning, good morning. See, now the promise of having fun is on me, so I got the burden now. Everybody doing well? All right, great. It's good to see you here. This is it's a good full house, I think. It's not half full. It's better than that. So we heard a lot yesterday about concept to launch. So what I'd like to do is sort of pull it back together and go into a little bit more detail about how we at Atlassian use the same techniques and the same products that we've been speaking about yesterday in our own work and do our own. Guys, Can we kill the notifications from four walls? Yeah, we don't need that. That's four walls. Did everybody see four walls? Do you remember that? This was our attempt at geolocating social applications. Did you hear about this? Well, you know how developers check in code all the time, and everybody heard about check-ins with Foursquare. So we thought, well, if you have to check in your code, you could check in while you're checking in. But of course, I know, it's a really bad joke. Shipped on April 1st. Shipped on April 1st. All right. So what we'll do is we'll give you a little bit of the story of Four Walls, sort of how this concept came to be, starting with the initial idea phase and going through the planning phase and the building and up to the great launch where the world embraced checking in when they check in, regardless of where they are at their desk or at their desk, I guess. So we saw this yesterday. We talked a lot about concept to launch in terms of our products. So what we'd like to do today is instead sort of take a little bit more of a personal view at that. You know, we say that development is social, and in fact it is. You know, unless you're one person working by yourself in your basement, in which case you're probably not using our tools. Chances are there's some degree of social interaction that's happening here, right? It's people sharing their ideas with each other. It's people commenting on each other's ideas, working together to plan how a release is going to come through, working together cooperatively to build it. We're going to talk a little bit about how the changes in source control today are evolving that might make the process of even writing code more of a social event. And then, of course, as we take all of the information that's gone into building a product, that goes out to the world, right, in a product launch. Now, that might be in a commercial software sense like we do, actually shipping the software. But for many of you, it might be releasing it to an internal audience or putting out to the users a new version of your applications and your websites. So that whole launch phase then proceeds. And of course, these cycles, as we saw yesterday, can be cycles within cycles, right? It might be an iteration goes through its own concept to launch phase, and then that might feed further iterations and other sprints, or it might feed the next version of your product. Products like Jira and Confluence, as you've seen, we're doing a really rapid cadence of releases now, so we're constantly doing this and using that launch phase to provide feedback. So my point here is that developing applications is really about the people involved with it. So let's introduce the players in our Foursquare app. Of course, in the concept phase, this is generally a project manager, a project owner, or in our case, it looks a lot like me. I was involved in the early stage, and I was told, go and build this Foursquare application. Of course, the product manager has to really believe in the project and be inspired by it so that we can take that message out to the team. And so I'm often going out and talking to customers, getting feedback, putting together business cases and specifications. So we'll talk about that a little bit. From that concept phase, we're going to move into the planning phase, and this is where generally the development manager gets involved. Now, the development manager, I'm sure it's the same in your organization as it is in ours. It's really the rock, the foundation upon which the development team is built. This is the person who has to inspire the developers and really get them on board. In our case, it's a guy named Brendan. He's always calm under pressure and can help shepherd the project from that concept phase into something that can actually be built. When we get to the point of actually translating all of those requirements into code, that's when the developers get involved. We're going to talk about one developer in specific. His name is Seb. He was really excited to be working on the project as well. And we're going to take a look at how he translates those unstructured into structured requirements into the actual code that builds the project. Now, finally, when we're ready to release our software, we have a great marketing team that gets involved. Unfortunately, the marketing people are often a little less enthusiastic about things. When we get into our marketing phase, we had to really convince Christina that this was a good idea. And we'll talk a little bit about how she takes that information into the launch phase as well. Okay? So again, we're going to take the same view at concept to launch that we took yesterday. And along the way, as we see the products working together, I want you to think about your own teams and how the people that are involved are going to be able to put these products together into sort of a unified environment to make all of these things happen, right? To really move your ideas from that concept to release. So let's start up here with the concept. Again, at Atlassian, I'm sure as it is at your company, we spend a lot of time out gathering data, right? So product management is all about understanding what the customer's needs are, what are the customer's problems, and articulating them into a solution. Of course, at this early phase, a lot of this data is unstructured. It's not something that would store really well in a database. It might be interview notes from customer interviews or calls. It might be competitive information where we're taking notes on what other products have to offer. And then eventually we're working it up into sort of a concept, a pitch that we can give to our colleagues and to management to say how we should proceed with the project. So I'll show you one way that we do this. If we were to always start with just a loose set of information, it'd be hard to systematically see how projects have changed over time. So we use product specs. And in this case, we use Confluence for it. But rather than relying on all of the product managers to come up with their own format for specs, we want to have a consistent template, a consistent way to present that information and share it with each other. So in this case, I'm going to start with a page template. We've created one for specifications, and the benefit here is it gives us just enough structure to the document. It's not structuring the actual data and translating it into work items yet, but it lets us have a repeatable format so that we can know the minimal amount of information that needs to be filled in. Of course, this is where we're still going to put that unstructured data, the free text, if you will, around the background of the project and some of the goals and objectives. Now, like we saw yesterday, the Confluence editing experience has gotten much better so that we can do things like have in-context search and linking, so we don't have to leave the context of writing a document to go and find another page that we want to link to. Now, the benefit of this isn't only one-way information where we're sharing our thoughts with others, but it's a feedback mechanism. So we have really lively debates on our internal sites about people giving their feedback on the idea whether we should move forward with, in this case, this was the iPhone part of the Four Walls app. And everybody who's in the company can subscribe to feeds here, so even though it's unstructured information, we got a much more social interaction around moving that idea through reality. Now, if you saw in that spec, it's mostly text at this point, but often in projects like this, the visual aspect of it is pretty important as well. So we also like to do things like mock-ups and user diagrams. In this case, we're going to use the Balsamiq mock-up plugin. The Balsamiq folks are upstairs, so go check them out in a break. It's a really nice application that will allow us to start doing some UI prototyping. You'll see there's a number of templates here. We've got a nice iPhone template, so we can get started with the right look and feel. And I particularly like this tool for prototyping because it has that kind of hand-drawn feel. So it's easy to have conversations about the intent of the UI without necessarily worrying about getting into conversations about exactly what it will look like. Since it has a sort of rough, hand-drawn feel, people know that we're talking about a prototype. We're just trying to get our intention out. We can go and annotate these mock-ups, use a whole template of pre-built UI components. And when we're ready to pull that back into our Confluence page, we don't have to worry about saving it out to the desktop using another application. It's automatically going to embed itself in the page from which we launched in the first place, right? So others are able to now come in and get a much better sense of what our intention is for the UI of the app. Now, in the planning phase at Atlassian, when we're ready to move the project along, we go through a formal kind of review process where we get together as a product management team and an executive team, and we look at the opportunity for the projects and we evaluate that. We call that a founder review. And in the case of Four Walls, we want to make sure that everybody is aware that this founders review happened and it passed. So there's no denying who was responsible for signing off on the project in this case. So what we want to do is take the PowerPoint presentation that we used at the founders review and embed it right here in the Confluence page. But again, we don't need to go out to the desktop. We don't have to go out to the file system. We can simply drag and drop that onto the Confluence page. And in this case, it's going to handle putting the attachment in, but it's also going to embed that PowerPoint right in the page. So when I save this, the users who are coming to check out that presentation, they're not going to have to follow a link and launch PowerPoint and open that outside of their browser. They get a nice preview of that content right in the context of the page. Okay? So already you're seeing a really easy way to start sharing different kinds of content that might have come from within our own plugin environment, the whole ecosystem of plugin providers that do everything like we saw yesterday with the Pirates Glyphy to do workflows, through mock-ups and UI prototypes like we see with Balsamiq to all of our other plugins. And even content from outside of the environment, the likes of Office documents or PDF documents and PowerPoints, okay? So all of this can come together to really move this idea from that concept phase to the phase where we're ready to actually start planning the building of the application. Now, this is the point where we need to say, we've gotten approval for the project, but how are we going to take this vague idea with its vague kind of requirements and turn it into something that can actually be coded? Now, we use an agile development process at Atlassian. I'm sure that many of you are doing some form of agile development as well. The benefit of that is it allows us to frame the work that has to be done in the project in terms of stories, highly user-centric stories. So we begin a process of documenting those stories and putting them all together into the project. When we make one of these big projects that consists of multiple stories, we call it an epic. So you can think sort of Homer's Odyssey. You've got a number of stories that go into the great big high-level epic. So this is what Brendan is going to do at this phase. He's going to use the new Green Hopper to create the epic and the stories that are going to start defining the items of work that are going to go into our project. So you'll see here he creates the high-level epic that's going to represent all of the work that's going into our Four Walls iPhone project. Now, from that, he can begin to define the individual stories. Now, the content from here is generally going to come out of the content that was produced in the planning phase. So things like the large units of functionality. I need my user to be able to check in code from his iPhone. I need the user to be able to check in code from various locations, both Wi-Fi or 3G or et cetera. We also have the ability to assign certain information about each story, its overall business value, and so forth. And then we have a really nice, easy-to-use user interface for arranging the relative priority of those stories. Now, once we've done all of this work, we don't necessarily want the other people in the project to have to go into Greenhopper to find out what's going on with the composition of those stories. So instead, we're going to go back to that spec page in Confluence and use the Greenhopper card view gadget to embed that card view right in the original Confluence page. So when I save that, here we've got that Jira-driven, Greenhopper-produced card view of our project embedded right in the Confluence page and updated automatically. So it's a really nice way to share that information in a format that's easier to consume for your non-technical users, but that's still kept up to date as the technical parts of the project advance. Okay? Now, once we've got the epic identified and all the stories, the next stage is for us to start getting together with the development team to figure out when exactly can we ship this product. Now, generally, these planning sessions are pretty rough and tumble activity where we're writing on paper cards and putting them out on a conference room table and sort of arguing about where things should go and how we can prioritize the work. Challenge with that is all of the information that's produced during that gets lost. We have somebody trying to stand above the table precariously with an iPhone to take a picture of the cards, to remember how we organized everything, and it's just not a very efficient way to do it. So what we do instead now is we just get a projector and we actually put our Greenhopper planning board up on the screen so that everyone can sit around at the table and interactively contribute to the information that's required for the planning session. Okay? Again, we're using our own tools combined with that sort of natural social tendency that we have to develop the software. So I'll give you a quick look at how one of those sessions go. We're going to start with all the stories that were potentially in the release in this list view. And now, interactively, with the team, we're editing in place to assign the story points here. So the story points can represent actual units of work. It could be man weeks or man hours, or it could just be a sense of sort of relative weight of the work that's involved. The idea here is to get the team interactively agreeing on sort of what's the relative difficulty of each of the parts and how much time they think they're going to take in comparison to the other pieces of work that we have to do. Now, you might have multiple kinds of points that you're measuring here. There might be UI points as well as story points if you have features that you want to measure on multiple metrics. But the goal here is to ultimately say, we want to take these stories and tackle them in this version of our product. So once we've assigned those relative weights and the story points, we can simply drag and drop those into what we want to tackle for version 1.1 of our product. Okay? Now, once we've decided what to do, we still don't know how long it's going to take us. So this is where some statistics based on our past performance start to become really important. We have a feature called markers that gives us a really nice visual way to see the capacity of the team to do certain amounts of work in each sprint. Okay? Now, in our case, you can see over here in the story points that in the past, we've typically managed about 18 story points per sprint. Now, that's just a rough guide, but we're going to use it here for our planning purposes to add a marker. And what the marker will do is keep track as we move and prioritize those stories to make sure that we have the right amount of features that can fit in each sprint. Now, right away, you can see from this that we're going to have at least 2 sprints, right? Because above the first marker, there's not enough room to get everything to fit above that marker. So we can go in and say we'll create 2 sprints. In our case, these are week-long sprints, so we'll put the start and end date. And now the process can begin of figuring out how can we actually deliver this software. So we'll prioritize, we'll move things around from the first sprint to the second sprint. Maybe somebody's going to be on vacation and we need to work on a feature at a different point. But the idea here is that that marker keeps moving in relation to the work that you allocate. So it's a brilliant way to figure out how can we fit the amount of work in the time that we have based on our past performance. Again, think of this in relation to the cards laying on the table before. Much, much more difficult to figure out what you could fit. Now, when we're ready to assign, we like the work that's going to happen in each sprint. Instead of having to go and do multiple pages to assign all of those features, I can simply drag and drop them into the bucket for each sprint. And that's all that it's taken now. I've assigned both sprints. I can see that high degree of confidence, we can fit it in based on the capacity and the story points. and we have our start and end date. So we can now go up and report to management that we feel fairly confident we can deliver version 1.1 on that specific date midway through the month. Of course, management will always be appraised of the process of this because we've embedded that card gadget in our Confluence page that has up-to-date information. So even as we're planning and replanning the launch, we're communicating that out to the team. Of course, part of this planning is producing more information as well. We have all of the data that's generated about the sprints, but we also want to be able to consume other information about how the builds are progressing, how bugs are arriving. And for the development manager, this is a really key part of his day. The development manager is coming in, and Brendan wants to have a good sense of where are we in the project, are we on schedule, are we going to ship on time? That's really the driving question for him. So for Brendan, the dashboard features that we've been seeing over the last day or two are really critical. This gives Brendan a way to create his own customized window into the project where he can pick and choose all of the gadgets that are most important to him and create his own custom view. In this case, he can pick information that's assigned to him so he knows what he needs to do in the morning, as well as how many days are remaining in the sprint and so forth. Again, since this is open social, he could also indulge himself in gadgets that come from outside of the project. Maybe he wants the sports scores on there. Of course, our Brendan doesn't have time for that. He's too busy. So instead, we can now go in and start taking all of those gadgets and laying them out in a custom configuration so that this dashboard presents in the easiest view possible exactly the information that Brendan requires to get his work done every day. Okay? Now, Brendan lives in Jira, but again, we saw that there are other people who may not live in Jira as often, and Confluence is more their center of information about the project. So we can take those same gadgets and use them in a Confluence page, but maybe there's a couple of different gadgets there. We want the same information about the burn down, but maybe we want more links to the contextual information, the spec, and so forth. So really powerful way here of creating these views into your project and then reusing them regardless of what project you're working in and what product, be it Confluence or Jira or the other tools. Okay? So now that we've moved through the planning phase, it's time to start thinking about how do we translate those requirements that we have defined in Greenhopper and Stories into the actual code that's going to be released to our customers. This is our building phase, and this is where the developers get involved. They're being assigned during each sprint each of those stories that they're going to work on, and are coming in every day and writing code and submitting it to the version control system. From that version control system, we use continuous integration to trigger automatic testing and automatic builds so that we're finding defects about our software earlier on in the process. We know that if a test breaks early, we can fix the bug earlier, and that means it's a cheaper fix rather than waiting until problems get released and get found by customers. So this entire process of writing code, checking in code, building code, and understanding the code that's the building blocks of our project, this is really the day-to-day world of the developer. Now, when a developer comes in the morning, they want to have a really easy glance at what the status of the project is and what their own status is contributing to the project. So we've talked a lot yesterday about wallboards. We have the wallboard running out in the lobby here. That's actually pulling data from the Jira team. So this is actually what the developers are seeing on the team when they come in. And again, the thing that we find really useful about wallboards is it's enhancing this notion of development as a social activity. It's sort of the village green of the project, right, where all the developers are coming in, they're checking in with each other constantly throughout the day, even if you're not aware that you're looking at it. Out of the corner of your eye, you can see whether the build is red or green, and it's sort of a call to action. When we added the icons for the user, for each user profile, that adds another dimension to it. Making sure that you're not the one who broke the build is pretty important for a developer's ego. So having that right up there, it puts it out in the open, and it incents people to make sure that they're contributing to the project well. Now, in Seb's case, if he comes in the morning and sees a big red block up there that build broke, obviously he wants to figure out what's going on there so he can get on to his morning coffee. So what Seb's going to do is go to his desk and quickly use the tools to figure out what's going on and try to remedy that problem before his colleagues get in the morning and see the red on the dashboard. So we told you that the dashboard is pulling those gadgets out of our systems. In this case, the red block there, the build failure, comes from Bamboo, our continuous integration server. So when Seb goes back to his desk, he can launch his Bamboo dashboard and see that build that failed. Okay? Nice, clear information there, what was going on. I can drill into the summary of the errors that were involved and eventually link into what was behind that build. Well, something changed, right? There was a change set that was contributed in my code that caused this test to fail. So by following that link in Bamboo to the change set, I go into Fisheye. Now, Fisheye reveals lots of information about the source in my repository. In this case, I want to look at two different versions of my source code. I knew that this project was working and building last week, but it's breaking now. So let me view the two different versions of it side by side to try to figure out where the problem occurred. This is our new side-by-side diff feature that gives you a much more powerful way to examine the changes between two versions. So I can go, and then Seb can go back and actually fix that. And through the magic of high-speed photography, the build gets fixed. When he goes in now, not only do we get information about when builds break, but we also want to understand when they are successful. So we get full information to the log from all of our tests and all of the builds behind the scenes. Okay? So very easy way to move from test results and understanding what's happening as the software gets turned into executable code and the source code behind it with a tool like Fisheye, right, which is going in and constantly monitoring the changes to your source code repository. This means, of course, that now Seb can have the wallboard updated in real time. It's constantly checking those integrated builds. When he puts his fix in for that problem, Bamboo kicks off a new set of tests and a new set of builds and reports back to the wallboard in real time that that build has now turned green, so that the developers can go about their daily business of doing what they do best and writing their code. I'm actually hiding in the back there, so the beers were strategically placed over my face, so no one will know it was me in the background. Now, this sort of case here, this is kind of the crisis case, right? We've all been in these sort of cases where we come in and a bug was introduced or found by support overnight and we needed to address it. But of course, there's a lot more sort of day-to-day work with our project, where we're simply triaging the issues that are coming in. Maybe we're addressing bugs or enhancement requests. We want to make sure that that's part of the build phase as well. So we talked yesterday a lot about some of the new features in Jira. These are particularly important to Seb as well as a developer. For example, he's seen a lot of bugs here, but most of them are his. Most of them are not his, hopefully. Sorry, Seb, if you're watching from Sydney. Now, since he's a developer, he's comfortable with writing SQL. So he's going to take advantage of the new JQL language to be able to really drill down to narrow that list of 600-some issues down to just the 15 that are important to him. Now, he doesn't want to have to write this code all the time, so he can save that filter. So using the full power of this structured query language, he can create exactly the view into the project that he wants and then save that, so every time he comes in the morning, he can quickly re-execute that same filter. Now, we talked yesterday about keyboard shortcuts. Really easy way to go through a list of issues, working down through this issue navigator and starting to do those common operations. Again, Seb's a developer. He's used to using the keyboard and hates to have to go hand to the mouse, hand to the keyboard, hand to the mouse, and click through multiple pages. So now we're simply moving up and down through the list, being able to change assignments to the issues, so you'll see that that's always updated. We're not leaving the page, assigning, and coming back and having to do page refreshes constantly. Now, in addition to a frequently used key like A for actions, we've got the dot key, right, which opens up access to all of the operations that he'd want to do in that type ahead menu. So in this case, I want to reopen the issue, or maybe in another case, I want to perform some other operations. So as I move through that list, if it's not a simple assignment or opening and closing, always just press that dot key, and it'll get me full access to all of the operations that I can perform here. Now, in this case, I'm going to resolve the issue. We're also able to track our time. So we do this internally as a way to keep track of, is the project on schedule? Tracking time also helps us know in the future how accurate our estimates were. So next time when we go back to assign those story points, we know, hey, we should maybe put a little bit more buffer in there. Now, here we are with a particular issue that we actually wanted to go in and apply some more detail. See, easy way to comment right at the beginning. And all of those operations that we had back out on the list view are also available here. So even though we are no longer in the triage list, we're still able to do the keyboard shortcuts. Again, Seb is able to do everything in the way that's familiar with him. We have lots of type ahead and code insight for code completion, like we saw in the Confluence piece. Again, you're seeing a lot more of these UI metaphors carrying through all of our products, hopefully. When he's finished with making the information on this particular issue, can simply return back out to the list and continue on with the triage. Okay? So as we saw yesterday in yesterday's keynote, operations that would have taken hundreds of pages and clicks and page refreshes are now done without ever taking your hands off the keyboard, essentially from one page. Okay? So this is where we were talking yesterday about giving you that 15 minutes back. You can see even for a single developer to figure out what they need to get done in the day, making these small improvements in usability can really have a large impact over the entire length of the project. Now, once we've worked on assigning the bugs and triaging the code, we often use Crucible internally for doing peer code reviews. Brenda did a great session yesterday, if you got to see it, about peer code review. If not, check out the recording of all of the sessions that we're going to publish afterwards. But peer code review is a great way to get your colleagues to look at your work as you're doing it. It increases the quality. Somebody asked me, well, does that really work? And I said, well, I've got an 11-year-old daughter, and I like to look at her homework, right? And it's not necessarily me looking at her homework that makes her do her paper better, but it's the knowledge that I might be looking at her homework that makes her do it better. And we find the same thing with code reviews, right? Having people understand that they have a responsibility to make sure their code is of a certain quality, and that when they're checking in, it's not simply vanishing into the Subversion repository somewhere, does a great job at increasing the quality of that code. It's also a really great benefit for the team in terms of sharing knowledge. By getting all of the developers to work together and see what they're doing, it spreads that knowledge. So you don't have that one guy who, if they get hit by a bus, nobody can figure out how that piece of the code worked, because you're sharing that. Again, bringing this social aspect to development. Now, we're really excited about Crucible, and it's a great product for people who have embraced formal code review processes, or these more structured code reviews. But for many folks who are just starting off with code review, they're not sure they want to bring that process into their organization. So in the new version of Crucible, we added a new feature that I'll show you here called paste reviews, where you don't even have to worry about talking about formal code review. It's simply a way to take a piece of code and drop it in a sort of paste bin-like service, where you paste in the code. We can give it some information. We have great syntax highlighting, so whether you're copying and sharing JavaScript or Java code, or in this case, XML. And what we're doing under the covers is creating a durable URL for that we can then share with our colleagues. We can send it in an email and say, hey, take a look at this and see if it should work for our project, or get feedback. And then a threaded discussion can happen around this code. Simply by clicking on a line of code, we can start having a conversation there. Now, under the covers, it's the same format as we use for structured code reviews. But in this case, there's no moderator, there's no assignees. It's just a really easy way to start to get your team talking about the technical implementations and doing it in a really durable way that will last. All of that is also searchable. So I might be in Fisheye searching for a particular functionality in my code base and remember that it was discussed at one point in one of these snippets. I can use the search box and it will do text searching on all of those comments as well as on the code, right? So again, increasing the way that we're working together socially as developers, even though we may not be physically located in the same place. We can have these code reviews and these code discussions even if we're in another office or halfway around the world. Now, as we've moved through that process of building the application, it's time to finally take that application to market. And generally, you would be starting from scratch here, right? I know marketing functions at some organizations This is the time when the marketing people sort of go out and they start going to the developers with a piece of paper and saying, tell me what you built, right? But in our case, since we had the information in our systems moving all the way through, all that content is there already. And the people in both the marketing, the tech support, the technical documentation teams are able to leverage the content that's already existing in our systems so that they're able to much more rapidly produce the content for launch. They'll use it for go-to-market plans, so we can create Confluence pages for that. We can use task doc creation inside of Confluence to make sure that we're on target for timing. We get our launch metrics in here, so we're pulling Google Analytics in, and we're able to see the performance of our pages as they're happening. And we can even create our release notes. Since the content for all of the specs was already written as these stories, very easy to automatically generate our release notes. And again, this isn't just a one-way communication. We can also use the same tools to solicit feedback for the next round of the project, right? So in this case, we'll use Jira so that our customers can actually suggest the recommendations for where we're going. I came from Adobe too, so that's particularly informative here, right? So I hope you've seen here how, when we talk about this concept to launch, we do spend a lot of time talking about the products and the product capabilities and how they work together. And certainly that's important. And we've certainly done a lot to make sure that the product integration is very tight today at a technical level. Of course, we're doing more with that in the future. When Mike comes up to talk about where we're going in 2011, you're going to see, get a sense of how we're improving the ability for our products to work together, both from administration and installation to actually the workflow between them. But even today, with these workflows and these integrations that we've already delivered, it's going to support the social style of development that I think is happening in the world today. Definitely going to be happening in your organization, whether those developers and those teams are in the same building, in the same room, or really spread out across the world, as is the case more and more often, certainly with us. All right? Now, all of these things these products that we've seen here, we're running behind the firewall. They're running inside our own offices. And you can absolutely do that yourself in your own organization. But for many people, the advantage of having all of this interaction as a hosted service is really beneficial. So we're going to move next into a section where we're going to take a look at Jira Studio, our hosted offering. So I'll bring Mike back up, and then we'll take it from there. Great. So thank you. Enjoy the rest of the morning.
Thanks, Tim. I hope that was an informative, kind of fun way to show you how all of the different tools can tie together. Interestingly, I had someone ask me yesterday how we made all of the wonderful things that we give you, and I didn't really know how to answer this question as I got chatted to in one of the hallways, and I said, well, we have 150 kind of awesome engineers around the world that build these things, and he says, I have far more than 150 engineers. How do you do this? And so the only answer I could really come up with was, well, we kind of use the tools that we build, right? So this is actually a very accurate picture of how Atlassian works internally, albeit with a fun sort of story running through it. But in terms of how our engineers work together, how we use all the various different tools, that's pretty much exactly how we work today in terms of tying everything together. So it gives you a pretty good picture. The next thing we want to do is talk a little bit about, again, the theme for the morning is really about integration and how the various tools tie together in different contexts. And I want to bring up Michael Knighton. Now, Michael has been sort of pioneering hosted offerings, SaaS services, if you like, at Atlassian for the last 2.5 years. And Jira Studio is our combined offering of all the tools online. It's gone an awful long way in the last year. As Scott said in the opening keynote, we've almost tripled the number of people using Studio. So I'd like to bring up Michael to tell you a little bit about Jira Studio and to follow on from some of the work that Tim's done before that. So here's Michael.
Good morning. So the easiest way to go from concept to launch with Atlassian's applications is Jira Studio. Studio is our hosted development suite. It combines all of our applications with Subversion source control, and everything that Tim just showed you is in Studio, or will be in Studio when it's actually released. And the best part is that because it's hosted, you sign up for it, you get it all pre-configured, integrated, and ready to go 5 minutes after you sign up. So, as the name implies, Jira Studio is built largely around Jira, and we focused a lot of our roadmap over the last couple years around how we can extend Jira's workflow engine through the entire development process. So everything that Tim just talked about going from concept to launch, we have tried to see how we can integrate that into the Jira workflow and push that out to the rest of the suite, because we think that's really powerful. So let me give you an idea of what I mean by that. So a lot of your developers will spend most of their day in the IDE. Some of them would prefer never to log into Jira or Studio at all. So what we've done with Studio actually is made it possible for developers to transition issues, to close them, to comment on them, or even to track time, all from the commit message. So you can type in the issue key, you can type in your command, and away we go. This idea of issue key linking is pervasive throughout Studio. You can type in an issue key or a wiki page or a revision key anywhere in Studio, and it will automatically render this as a link. And this is powerful not just because of the convenience of easy linking, but because of the associations that Studio is making behind the scenes. Studio is going behind the scenes and it's aggregating all this information and putting it all together so that, for example, if you go to look at an issue, you can see all the related source, all the related activity, reviews and bills, all from there. So some of the similar sort of integrations that we've built, we have tried to integrate code reviews, Crucible, into the issue so that you can initiate a code review from the issue. Along the same lines, you can trigger a build from a code commit, and if, like I showed you a second ago, if you put your issue key into the commit message, you can actually see the code, the issue, and everything else all related inside that build. And if you go back to that issue, you'll be able to see all the associated code and the build and everything all together. So you start to tie all this together, and you can start to understand what I mean by everything being driven from Jira. We think this is really powerful. We think that the Jira workflow can drive the entire process from concept to launch, and that's really going to define a lot of our roadmap over the coming years with Studio. So I'd like to talk a second about our most recent announcement with Studio, which was our integration with Google Apps. If you guys didn't see this, we announced it on stage at Campfire a couple of months ago, and so far the response has really been awesome. People have been really blown away about what we've built, so I'm going to walk you through, just for a second, a couple of the most exciting parts of that integration. So we'll start off in Gmail, and the first thing you'll see is down at the left-hand side there's a gadget, and this is a gadget of Studio issues assigned to me. We can look at an issue actually inside Gmail, and we can click through into Studio from there, but we're going to go ahead and navigate over into Studio from the top-hand Gmail navigation. You get single sign-on, so you're automatically logged in, and you can see that this is the Studio dashboard, which is quite similar to the Jira dashboard. We have all the gadgets, and we'll click on into an issue. So what I think is one of the most useful integrations that we built here is actually the ability to attach a Google document to a Studio issue. You can preview it, make sure it's the one you want, and go ahead and attach it to the issue. And the great thing about it all being hosted and all out in the cloud is that every time you go back to this issue, the most recent version of that document will be attached to this issue. Across the bottom is the Studio activity bar, and this gives you visibility both into Studio activity, so you can see issues and favorite wiki pages and that sort of thing, but you can also see recent Gmail, you can see upcoming calendar events, and sites and docs. And then at the right-hand side, we've embedded Google Talk. So you can actually initiate a conversation with somebody else in your organization, all without leaving Studio. Along the same lines, you can get instant build notifications inside Studio from when you have builds fail. And there's a bunch of other integrations that we built with Google. The ability to embed Google documents into wiki pages and things like that. And there's a ton of material on the website. I don't have time to detail all right now, but definitely do go to the website and check out the video that we have there about the Google Apps integration. And we're super excited about it, and we're going to continue to sort of think about ways that we can improve that integration as we go forward. Sorry, that was kind of fast. So where do we go next? So again, we're continuing to sort of think about ways that we can extend workflow through the entire process that Tim talked about. So some examples of things that we want to build over the coming months is the ability for a failed build, for example, to revert an issue state back to open. If you've had an issue that was closed and then the build failed, if you know what the issue was, you should be able to reopen that issue and say, come back and fix me. By the same token, if you have the Crucible code review integrated into the workflow properly to where once the code review has been approved, then that should be able to actually close the issue. And along the same lines, sometimes developers will want to be able to sort of arbitrarily say that I would like for this specific code commit to trigger a code review. And these are just the integrations that we're sort of building within the existing products. The great thing about Studio is that you'll always benefit from the collective roadmaps of all of our products. So all the goodies you've been seeing with Jira and Confluence and Greenhopper and Fisheye over the last couple of days, you'll get automatically with Studio, and you get it for free. So to learn a bit more, we are doing a talk this afternoon. Shihab, one of our developers, is working with Razorfish, talking about Jira Studio development in the cloud. That's at 2:15 in dev speed. And if you see me out in the hall, grab me. I'm happy to bend your ear about why you should be using Studio. And Mike will be coming up here in a couple minutes and talking a little bit more about where Studio and Atlassian is headed. So thanks a lot.
So that was a really brief introduction to Studio and some of the interesting things we've done over the last year in that product. A couple of things that have come up to me in Studio over the last couple of days. We have added Bamboo. It wasn't there initially, but it is now part of the Studio suite. And all of those builds are actually done at EC2. So it uses Bamboo's Elastic Builds feature to allow you to determine how much computing power you want to throw at the building system. The other thing that's come up with Studio is it's always lagging a little bit behind our applications. And we're working really hard to change that at the moment. So you're going to see over the next year, Studio getting much closer in terms of release dates to the behind-the-firewall applications, which is, I think, going to help a lot of those Studio people who want to get the latest goodies exactly on the same day that everyone gets them behind the firewall. And lastly, I just point you to Shihab's session there at the end. He's going to be talking a lot about that Google Apps project that we did. And it's really a little bit like Tim's demonstration of four walls, albeit with an actual real-world project that we did at Atlassian, where Google came to us and said, hey, we're launching this marketplace. We'd really like you guys to be involved. But by the way, here's a set of specs. They're not really baked yet. We don't really have any implementations, but we'd like you to launch this in January. And we're like, hang on a sec, that's about 8 weeks from now. And they're like, yeah, but it'll all be ready by then. And we're like, well, how are we going to build our parts of that? You know, it's going to be really difficult to have these evolving specs that are constantly changing. So Shihab really takes you through how we threw together a team of 10 engineers, and they had to be extremely agile to adapt to the changing specifications. And then they produced what you see at the end in terms of the activity bar, single sign-on, all these awesome Google Apps integration features. So it's a really interesting talk. Even if you're not interested in Studio per se, it's really interesting to see how that project came together. Now we just wanted to put in a little segue, I guess, between features to talk about something that's really, really important to us at Atlassian, and that really is support. Right? We've never claimed, nor will I hope we ever claim in the future, that our applications are in any way perfect. Hands up those of you who's filed a support issue in the last year. That's about as good a demonstration. Hands up who hasn't filed a support issue in the last year. There we go. It's about 8, 10. Well, I'm assuming that most of the people who have not filed support issues are probably watching the World Cup, or they're the ones that are really hungover or something like that. Or else the applications are not perfect. You know, we do our best, and we think support is a really important part of the vendor-customer relationship. And we have to be able to fix the problems that you guys find really quickly. We have to be responsive, and we have to understand your businesses as well as we can to get back to you and to help you get through those problems that you are inevitably going to face. So let me bring up Andrew, who is our support god, to tell you a little bit about what we've done over the last year.
Wow, support God. Gosh. Actually, I was a little worried when Jay asked me to present to you guys, 10, 15 minutes of support in front of the development crowd. But, man, I'm pumped now because 540 tweets yesterday saying that this is the only reason we came for this 10 minutes. So I reckon the other 8 to 10, that was those guys that haven't logged a support issue yet, so they don't know how good we do it. So as a result of that, Jay said I've got 2 hours now, so I hope you're settled in for the long haul. Let's get on with it. So this is our internal mission statement. Don't really need you to read every bit of it. What I wanted to do, Mike talks about Jira being at the center of your universe. Well, we put you guys at the center of our universe. That's what we want to do all the time. Our passion is customer support and giving you guys legendary service, and we do that so that you guys can follow your passion, which is delivering great great software. So what is legendary service? It's something we talk about a lot, something we consider. How do you define it? We think it's kind of three things. In a perfect world, you have products with no issues. The best support you can ever have is the support you never need. But of course, we do know, as Mike just said, that it does happen sometimes. And when it does happen, we want to be able to solve issues by letting you help yourselves. So we want to put up great online help, great tools, so you can get support anytime when you want it without needing to contact us. And of course, when it truly does go wrong and you need to contact us, we know that we got to be there to give you best of class service. And that means fast, and that means great quality. So let's talk about how do you define how do you measure what legendary service is? Well, mostly it starts and stops with you guys. We send out customer satisfaction surveys at the end of every month. Hopefully you've seen those. In fact, we get about a 40% response rate. That's about 4 times the industry standard. So firstly, thanks. Really appreciate all that feedback. We love getting it. And we know that about 85% of you guys are really happy with this response you get, a really positive experience. Now, support surveys are pretty much internal. How do you correlate that? Well, I spent 11 years at Apple. And Apple's held up as one of those great leaders of support. Now, if you go to public surveys, when they do through PC Mag and things like that, they lead Dell and everybody else by about 10 points, 10%. Well, our internal surveys, Apple does internal surveys. By some coincidence, our questions are almost identical to Apple's. So let's do a correlation. When I was at Apple's, those internal questions were getting around about a 75 to 80% positive response rate. So I can tell you we're about 5% ahead of Apple. But we're not happy with that. We're going for 100%. That's our goal. And I'm going to talk to you about some of the things we're doing to achieve that. And just another side, we don't just stop at the 7,000 survey feedbacks we've had. We sit there measuring minute by minute, day by day, hour by hour, everything we can do to make sure we're hitting our goals, checking the queues, delivering you great service. So if I go back to those 3 areas, I just want to walk through these areas and talk about the things we've been doing. So let's talk about what we do to give you a product with no issues. Of course, we do the obvious things. Support works with our QA engineering teams, our performance engineering teams, make sure those bugs never see the light of day. And of course, when they do, we work closely with our dedicated bug development teams, bug fixing teams. That would be an interesting one. Just to make sure we prioritise and get those fixes out to you as soon as we possibly can. We've done around 3,500 bug fixes in our products in the last year. But I think the bit that I'm really proud of is the fact that based on your feedback that you give us, we get to interact with product management and engineering and really drive the changes that are going to make a difference to the things that are causing a pain in the ass for you. Universal Plugin Manager, Mike talked about that yesterday, is going to fix up many of those upgrade compatibility issues that you've been facing before, help you manage your plugins a lot easier. We previewed the rich text editor. We know those round-trip wiki markup issues are a pain in the ass. We're going to be releasing a completely revamped rich text editor. We hope a lot of those formatting issues will be a thing of the past. And later this year, we'll be releasing some Jira and Confluence enhanced LDAP and user management. So we hope a lot of those painful LDAP issues that you've been facing will also disappear. And of course, your feedback continually tells us that we've got to keep working on installation and upgrade. It's a big fish to fry, but we're committed to doing that, and we've got people working on what that will mean and how we can deliver that to you. But as I said, when you do need to talk to us or when you do need to solve an issue, the best way we can help you to do that is to put our time into great knowledge bases, great tools that help you help yourself. So let's talk about a little of the things we've been doing there. Over the last year, we've completely revamped our knowledge base. It's now much easier to find issues. It's much easier to search by version, by product. And going forward, I'm going to talk to you about some resource changes we've made. We're going to be totally focused on improving the quality and the quantity of our knowledge base articles over the next 6 months. You're going to see a dramatic change in this area. But we thought to ourselves, well, you've got a great knowledge base. It doesn't make sense to then not use it. So we developed this tool called Hercules. It's our Atlassian support robot. Hercules scans your issue description and log files so that when an engineer picks up an issue, they can help you more quickly. Now we kind of thought, well, it's kind of still not enough, right? Why would we delay that? Why not introduce Hercules to you guys? So I'm sure a number of you have seen in the last 4 or 5 months that when you create an issue, Hercules jumps in and solves that issue for you if you've hit a known issue instantly. Here you can see we're creating an issue. It's a priority 1. It's a system down with 100% CPU usage, performance issue with Tomcat server. As quickly as you can load up the logs, create the issue, and just bam, look at that. Scroll down there and we'll pick up the link. Hercules will, as quickly as you can create the issue, will send out a link back to you that's a known issue. You need to adjust some of your permgem parameters, give you a link to how to do that, all without us being involved. How good's that? And of course, already we've had quite a lot of feedback about how good this has been. That really excites us when we hear that, helps us think about where we should focus our efforts. A few little fanboys there on the internet, and so much so we've created a Facebook page, so when you get back to your office you can friend him. But we kind of thought that's still not enough. We started to think about, well, if Hercules knows about known problems and your logs contain a sort of a link to that, why not get Hercules to tell you about those problems before you even know you have them? Well, you don't even have to think about that anymore, because we're announcing today that in the next month we'll be releasing a Support Tools plugin for Confluence, and a month or so later, the Support Tools plugin for Jira. So what will that let you do? It'll let you, from the administration console, scan your logs. Hercules will find your problems, link you to the knowledge base articles that'll fix them, even before you even knew you had them. So what else do we want to do with this? Well, of course, we want to add the other products in, so we're focused on that. It's an obvious next step is to do notifications to your screen. So get notifications out to your screen of upcoming releases, security updates, all the sorts of things, a way of communicating with you when you're not even logging support issues. And of course, we want to, as we improve that knowledge base, we're going to start to give you the top 10 or the relevant articles to your issues, your product, your version number. So that's some of the things we've been doing around helping you to help yourself. So let's get to the last area. The last area is, what do we do to give you best of class service? This is the area I'm really proud about as well. You told us a year ago that we just didn't have enough coverage, particularly in Europe, particularly servicing the US East Coast. As you can see here, this is where we were 6 or 9 months ago. No surprises, we're a Sydney-based company, so we had a lot of support people in Sydney, a lot of, San Fran was our next office, a lot of people in San Fran. So West Coast very well looked after, Asia Pac very well looked after. So what have we done? Well, as a result of that, we've opened a whole office servicing the US East Coast. It's actually now our largest support centre. We've dramatically improved the European coverage. So you'll see there that we've increased our staff and our coverage by about 65%. So a huge investment we've made in people. In fact, far more than the growth of our load in that time. But we didn't just stop there. You told us you wanted better product coverage. So we're in the process, and we'll complete this process in about the next 1 to 2 months, of making sure that Studio, Bamboo, Crowd, Fisheye, Crucible will be 24/5. So you'll get it in the East Coast, West Coast, Asia Pac, Europe. We know that's been a pain in the arse, that has been very focused on Asia Pac for those smaller products. So look out for that as well. You also told us that when you've got a problem, you need to be able to rely on us. Not many companies doing this type of support will put out service levels. But you told us that when you had a system down, you had to be able to rely on how quickly we respond. So we released service levels about 4 months ago. We're totally committed to meeting these service levels. In the next quarter or so, we'll be starting to publish how we're going against those service levels, so you can check day by day how we're going. And later on, we want to reduce these service levels even further. We think we can get that even tighter. And of course, we need to be able to track all this stuff, so we've developed our own wallboards internally. They're highly configurable. They let us filter by product, by criticality, by time zone, all sorts of stuff we need to do to run support, run wallboards. I have to laugh when you guys are starting to put up wallboards for development. We've been doing this for about 10 years. And we know that a lot of you say you want to know how to run support with Jira, so we're going to be releasing this also. Now, this is very customized to our workflows, but what we're going to do is a series of blogs and sample code to show you how to do these types of views. In fact, I'm sure that we can extend a lot of that out beyond support. I'm sure there's lots of applications for filtered list views connecting to Jira, custom fields and so forth, and calculations on those, and we'll blog that and give you sample code of how we did it. So, to summarize, what have we talked about here? We've talked about a lot of things we're doing in each of these areas to make sure support is best of class for you. We're delivering you LDAP improvements, we're delivering you rich text editor improvements to make sure that those things that have been a pain in the ass that you've told us in support about get fixed in the product. We're going to deliver you Hercules on your site. We're going to deliver you better knowledge base articles, more articles, better quality, so that you can help yourself anytime without needing to contact us without that delay. And when you do need us, you can be guaranteed that we're there in any product, any time zone for your issue. And of course, that you can rely on us with the service levels we deliver. But that's what we're doing. Of course, Atlassian is a company about sharing what we get. You've told us regularly that, help us understand how you run your support center. Help us get access to the tools. So here's a few of the tools. We're releasing the Confluence Support Tools plugin with Hercules embedded in it in about a month's time. Jira a month or so later. Talked about that support dashboard portlet. We're going to move that to a gadget in the next month as well, but we'll blog that in the next few weeks, and then we'll continue to evolve that. And as we do, we'll keep sharing that sample code and that knowledge with you. Jeremy talked yesterday about the learnings we'd gotten out of creating Confluence, using Confluence as a knowledge base and the survey plugin tool. So if you didn't catch that, have a look at that in the slides we post up post Keynote, and check out that plugin as well. And of course, for some time we've had up the Jira Toolkit plugins. So these are a set of this is a plugin that highlights all the custom fields we create in support and how we use them. Go to plugins.atlassian.com and you can get access to that. And of course, we love to help people. So if you want to talk to anyone about how we do these things, come talk to us at Atlas Bar. If you want to sit down and talk for 2 hours with me about my passion, which is support, happy to do that. And Jeremy's session, as I said, was yesterday, but to catch those slides, Jeff Curry's today is going to talk at 3 p.m. about upgrade do's and don'ts, so catch that as well. And we always love your feedback on Twitter, so thanks very much.
So how is that? Right? We got people cheering in the background here. We got people doing some hand pumping, right? That's awesome, right? That shows you the sort of excellence that makes it worthwhile working at this company, right? That we can get up for 15 minutes and talk to you about the stuff we're doing in support, and people get excited. There's fist pumping going on, right? That's just awesome, right? The fact that our support guys actually make a whole series of awesome tools, and we're giving them to you guys as well, is pretty fun. Most of the people who write those tools are actually going to be at the Atlas Bar as well, so if you just want to inquire about them, how Hercules works. Hercules is a great example of an Atlassian project that started as an experiment in one of our innovation, I'm not too sure, I think it was a FedEx Day project to start with, but started as a FedEx Day project. Initially it was running on SAC, support.atlassian.com, without you guys knowing it, just telling us. So it was giving us comments to try and help us to answer you more quickly. We thought, hang on a sec, if it's giving us comments, could we not give them to you guys? So then we started adding comments for you, and people were really excited by that. Some point along the way, it added a Facebook page, which is really important for all those who are friends with it. How many people are friends with Kitty, by the way? Quite a few. Okay, so Kitty is the Atlassian email robot that emails you our automated thing. So We suspect that Kitty and Hercules might actually have something going on Facebook, but they're not Facebook official yet. And then to take it one step further is actually to take the Hercules data and distribute it behind the firewall. So to give you guys a plugin that you can run. And the next step, obviously, we're going to take it to is to actually have your Jira instance email you and say, hey, I think I got a problem. I think you need to go and read this because it'll help us solve it. So-and-so's running too slowly or something. So just shows you the absolute awesomeness that we have. It's a good example of how every department in Atlassian is striving for excellence, and I hope you enjoyed the support talk. So what I want to do is take a couple of minutes, just before we get to the Charlie Awards, which we have coming up at the end, to talk about what we're going to be seeing in the next year in our tools in 2011 and perhaps a little bit beyond there. Again, it's very difficult to talk about the future. Everyone always likes to say what's coming, and we like to give you guys a bit of an insight. Some of this stuff obviously will change, some of it's a little half-baked, but I'll try to give you an idea as we go along about where different things are up to in terms of their progress. So if we think about the world traditionally, I guess, people and teams were quite centralized. So you'd often have development teams working historically very close together. They'd all sit next to each other in the same room, and you'd build a piece of software and away you'd go. Now, over the last couple of years, we've seen much more of a distribution of software development, right? So whether this is people working on different components in the same organization in different offices, perhaps even in the same city, but within the same company, to people distributed around the globe who have multiple development teams, to people who work with partners and other companies and have to exchange code and components and the results of software projects. We're a living, breathing example of this. We started with 2 guys in Sydney who like to write code. Now we have 150 engineers in Sydney, in San Francisco, in Poland, and in Kuala Lumpur. So we ourselves are an example of, over the last 8 years, how software development in terms of people has become a lot more distributed. But it's not just those people that have become distributed, it's also the code itself. So you're starting to see people doing, obviously, a programming and distributing that source code around the world in different ways. And beyond the code, it's also the applications, right? So a lot of you have multiple copies of Jira running, perhaps in the same building, perhaps in different buildings, in different states, different countries. You might have your fisheye server separated from your Jira server, and you want to link all these things together. So really what I wanted to tie the various things that we're doing together in is in terms of the distribution of people, the distribution of source code, and the distribution of your servers and applications, and talk to you about the types of things you're going to be seeing coming from us to try and solve some of these problems over the next year. So let's get in and start with people. So distributing people really leads to a couple of different problems. One of them is obviously if they're working around the world, they're planning meetings and timing and things like that is very difficult. The second is they probably speak different languages, right? We're lucky because our office in Sydney and our office in San Francisco speak relatively the same language. I apologize for all those who, my wife, by the way, told me that I spelt center wrongly on one of the slides when we talk about Jira at the center of the development world. We spell in English. We have this problem that 55% of our customers are outside North America and 45% of them are inside. So C-E-N-T-R-E is the English spelling. We'll spell it as C-E-N-T-E-R perhaps for next year's keynote. So it wasn't a typo. We spoke a different language, and it's a good example of people being distributed. So what do we have at the moment? Well, at the moment we have Jira in 4 languages. So you can run Jira in French, in German, in Japanese, and in English, right? And we've had a whole series of other languages contributed, but they're probably at various stages of completeness. For example, the Korean translation, I think, was submitted with Jira 3.7, so it's probably about 5% complete by now, given all the changes that have happened in Jira, right? And we have time zone support in some applications and not others. So for those of you who's used Confluence, you know that you as a user can select your time zone in your preference, and all the dates and times will update. So the first thing we're going to talk about is time zones, and we're committing pretty strongly to having the time zones and Jira issues solved by next year. So for anyone who's voted on JRA 9, it is the oldest Jira issue in existence. Yes, it has a single-digit code, and we're going to be getting on to fixing this. It's quite a complicated issue for us to solve, But when we're looking more at the global world, we're going to get on this, and we have to get on this. And the other thing is we're going to be launching a site called translations.atlassian.com to help you actually translate our software for your own users, for your own customers, and for people in your language. So translations.atlassian.com, as we mentioned, is going to basically democratize the process of translating Atlassian tools, both our own applications, but also for our partners, for open source plugins, for commercial plugins. People will be able to upload a set of translations in English, and we're hopeful that the community will help them in translating it into different languages. Now, this has a couple of different benefits. One of those benefits is, obviously, if people are in a place that we don't have many partners or particular good support, multiple customers can get together very easily in this application and work on the translation collaboratively. So they can get Jira running in Ethiopian or whatever language they want it to be running in. The second advantage of this is it's got a moderation system and a reputation system, so you can be assured that the translations you can download off this site, and again, we'll be plugging it into the application so they'll download automatically where needed, are high quality. And the third advantage is we often have debates amongst our translators, and this puts us in a really difficult situation. So for example, in German, we've had debates about whether issue should be, and I'm going to get this wrong, but I think whether issue should be translated as problem or whether it should be translated as ticket, right? And the problem is we have two German users going back and forth at each other with us in the middle sort of changing it, and then the other people get upset, and then we change it back, and we don't know which it should be. So this is going to give us the chance to have multiple translation packs available for the various applications. So if you want to run Jira, for example, as a support system, and you want to have problem and flowing through, for example, you want version to be called something else, you'll be able to have that translation pack that you can install. And if you want it to be tickets and iterations and stories, you can have that as well. So we're running this in beta at the moment with a few partners. We're going to be opening it up probably in about 3 months to the general public. If you'd like to participate in the beta or get access to these translation facilities, you can go to this URL, atlassian/utrans, sign up for the beta, and we're pretty excited about how this is going to take us more around the globe in terms of people and for those distributed teams. The second thing I want to talk about is distributed source code. So traditionally, source code has been a centralized activity, which worked pretty well when you had everyone working in the same room. So in this case, you have a source repository up the top and a bunch of developers who are checking in, checking out, doing all of their sort of merge work, etc., to a one source base. However, as teams move and as development gets more complicated, centralized version control systems are becoming a little bit more dated, I suppose. And there's kind of a new kid on the block, which is called distributed version control systems. So how many people use a distributed version control system today? Maybe, I'd say 5% of the audience, if that. Now, we're betting pretty heavily that this is going to change quite a lot, right? We're going to do a survey next year, so it was 5%. We'll write that down somewhere. We'll see next year. My guess is next year it'll probably be 20% of you guys are using distributed version control systems, and the year after it'll be 50%, right? These things are growing very fast. We ourselves are going through the transition. So the difference with a distributed version control system is basically that the version control system lives everywhere at the same time. It's a simple way to put it. Instead of having one central source of truth, everybody has a source of truth, and it's more of a peer-to-peer system where you can share source code. You'll notice the developers there can push it to and from each other without having to go in and out of the central user. Now, we've got a talk on distributed version control systems coming up today. Justin's doing it. I'm not exactly sure the time. I think it's this morning. So if you want to learn more about them in detail, I would encourage you to go to that talk. So where are we at today with distributed version control? Well, at the moment we're going to be supporting Git and Mercurial. So for those people in the audience, how many people prefer Git? And how many people prefer Mercurial? Right? That's about right. So it's pretty much a 50-50 battle right now. So we're going to be supporting both of these systems. We personally lean a little bit further towards Mercurial. It seems to have better enterprise support. It seems to have better take-up in the enterprise. It seems to be a little bit more built for corporate development. But we're going to be supporting both. At the moment, we have support for Git in Fisheye. So we've rolled it out in alpha, as we do with all new source control systems, in a previous release, and it went out in final in the last release of Fisheye and Crucible, I should say. And similarly, Mercurial support went out in alpha in the current release of Fisheye and Crucible, and it's going to be final in the next release. So thank you to everyone who's given. I know we've had a ton of feedback from the customers about using Git and Mercurial support. And similarly with Bamboo, we support Git and Mercurial at the moment, both via plugins, and those are going to come as part of the standard package in an upcoming release of Bamboo. So we're also going to be spending a lot of time on not just support for those systems in Fisheye and Crucible and Bamboo and the source code type tools, but really across our whole suite of tools. And you're going to see a lot of features and functionality from us that help you guys be even faster in building software by leveraging distributed version control systems. So the question is, why do we need these sorts of features? Well, DVCS produces a lot more data than version control systems do. You suddenly have data coming from all of these repositories, and we need a way to help you guys analyze and understand all of that data, right? Search in Fisheye is no longer a problem of saying, well, we'll just index your source repository, we'll understand all of the source code and we'll search it. We need to suddenly understand that there's source code repositories everywhere and how they all tie together. So we're working pretty hard on that problem. The second thing is you want these distributed version control systems because they enable you to collaborate, right? They enable all of these different teams to be able to work better together. However, they tend to create chaos when they're introduced, because the idea of being able to send my source code to... I swear that wasn't a chaos gag. Sure, we'll get them back up in a second. So again, in terms of chaos, right? The idea of me being able to send my source code directly to Bob and getting Bob's changes back without having send them to the central corporate repository scares companies a lot, right? How are we going to know what's going on? How are we going to have a centralized source of truth? So what we're trying to do is build all of our tools so that they help you get to those collaborative benefits and help you understand and control the chaos that can ensue. And we've got a lot of ideas and a lot of prototypes running of how to do that. And the last thing, or the second last thing, is you need to actually get to a distributed version control system. So this is a transition we're actually going through ourselves at the moment, right? We have a heavy investment in Subversion. We have a replicated, monitored, very advanced Subversion infrastructure around the world to allow us to do what we do today. But as we move to Mercurial, we have to update our own tools. We have to update the IDE tooling. We have to update all our scripts. And generally that move is not a big bang. We're not going to move in one day. We're going to move project by project, component by component, and do it carefully, right? And we have to migrate across. And so what we're doing is helping our tools, especially, for example, in Fisheye, for you to migrate from one version control system to another and actually run them in parallel, because running them independently and having a big switchover is something that people just can't really do. And as a part of that, they need to coexist for a long time. So Fisheye has helped a lot of people move from CVS to Subversion in the last sort of big iteration of source control systems. And similarly, we're going to be using Fisheye as a tool to really help people understand as they move from Subversion to, for example, to Mercurial. Fisheye has features, for example, like aliasing. So you can say, my name is Mike, my username is Mike in this repository, and mcanon in the Mercurial repository, Mike in Subversion, mcanon in Mercurial, but I'm both of these people. And I can say, show me everything that Mike, the user, has done, and it'll pull all my commits from both repositories into a single feed. So if I'm doing different things in different repos, I can handle that. So why are we talking about this? Well, we didn't want to show you any screenshots because when people see screenshots of the stuff that we have, they get too excited that it's about to ship tomorrow, right? So we like to show you mock-ups when stuff's a little bit further away. So we're talking the 3 to 6 to maybe even 9-month time frame. You're going to be seeing a lot of this over the year, rolling out as features, again, across the applications. It's not just about Fisheye and Crucible. It's going to change the way you use Jira. It's going to change the way you use Bamboo. There's a lot of exciting features we have coming up. What we're really looking for is for those leading edge customers to get in contact with us. So if you want to join the user task force around DVCS, this is the URL. We'll get you access to some early stuff. We'll get your feedback, and we'll help kind of go on the journey with you guys in terms of how that's going to change the way you build software. And lastly, we're talking about distributing applications. So we've seen a lot so far about how to link applications together, but these applications are also spread around the globe, around the enterprise, around the company. There's sort of, again, a scaling issues there. Pretty much like the product to launch cycle. It can be a release, an iteration, or a feature. In this case, distribution can mean people in different parts of the same building, in different states in the same company, or in different countries around the globe working for different companies. So what are we doing in terms of distributing your application and distributing your servers, both our servers and bringing other people's into the cloud? So we've released gadgets. So a year ago, we talked about open social and gadgets very heavily. You've seen our commitment throughout the year to continuing to add gadgets to various applications, so you can see all of your data from different apps. And you've seen us build on them with wallboards and with various other features. For example, you can put them in Confluence now. What you may not have realized, some of our leading edge customers have realized, but perhaps not everybody has, that gadgets are actually a great technology for distribution of servers. Right? If you have two development teams, you have one in Eastern Europe and one in America, you can actually build a single Jira dashboard that works off two Jira instances to pull in gadgets from the second Jira into the first one. So you can monitor two Jira servers at the same time. Similarly, you can have a Confluence instance that pulls data from all over the place. So gadgets are already a really good technology to help this distribution. Same with wallboards. You can have one wallboard that shows you data from two different development teams. Maybe it cycles between them, for example. So we're going to be continually building on top of gadgets to solve this distributed server problem. The second thing you've seen from us quite a bit today is application linking. Right? So the concept of, for example, committing with a Jira key that then flows through Fisheye so you get the source code linked to that issue, flows through Bamboo so you can see all the builds that are related to that issue, and then you can maybe fire off a code review, and that's tied to the issue key. And things like that, right? In Studio, you get it everywhere very seamlessly. What we're going to be doing over the next year, and you're going to be seeing over the next, there we go, over the next 6 months especially, rolling out in the next releases of our applications and then further on, is a concept that we're calling universal application links. So we're going to talk through that in just a second. And really a universal application link is the concept of being able to actually connect two of our applications together and for them to know what's on the other end. Right now most of our links are one way, and we need them to be two-way to be able to do some really exciting features. We're going to be introducing activity streams, right? So we have activity streams in Studio. You saw them in Michael's demonstration, where we saw all of the different commits across different applications. Sorry, the activity across different applications. You saw commits, builds, you saw Jira issues, comments, you saw wiki pages being created, all within the context, for example, of a single project. You got all that activity together. So we're taking a lot of that technology out of Studio, and we're going to be bringing it to you guys behind the firewall. So if we think about universal app links, at the moment we think of having this sort of loosely connected mesh of applications, really pushing data back and forth. But really we need to connect those much more heavily. So we're going to be releasing this universal app links technology, and it's a fairly open protocol. It's XML based, etc. It's built on a whole series of open standards. So any partners or any integration, other applications can actually participate in the conversation with ours as well. We're going to be publishing all of the things that we do there. And this is very hard to talk about other than a diagram of kind of links between servers, because that's really all it is. But it enables us to do some really exciting things. So one of the things it enabled us to do is to get an activity stream across all the apps, right? So to be able to actually have a very flexible way of saying, hey, Jira, here's Fisheye. If Fisheye, here's Bamboo. And then, if Fisheye knows where Bamboo is, Jira can easily find it via the link, and away we go, right? Being able to link multiple Jira servers together around your organization to do all sorts of things in terms of remote linking and two-way dependencies and things like that. Activity streams is just one example of the types of features we can build to see all of the activity across these different things in one place. But we wanted to show you a more exciting example of the types of things that we can build and you'll be seeing from us. So rather than show you a static screenshot of activity streams, I really wanted to leave you with a more exciting demo of what we can do. So let me give you a demo of what we call Jira Anywhere. So Jira Anywhere is a very exciting concept for us. A lot of these integrations you've seen require you to actually move between applications. But what if you didn't actually have to move between applications? What if they just knew about each other, right? So what Jira Anywhere is it's a JavaScript library that enables you to literally put Jira anywhere. So as long as there's some application link set up, you can take Jira and put it into another application. Now in our case, that's obviously very useful. You want to be able to manipulate Jira issues from within Bamboo when they're related to a build. You don't want to go to Jira. You want to be able to do it in Bamboo. You want to be able to create issues from everywhere, right? You're in Confluence. You want to be able to create an issue on this page. Maybe it's a spec. You say, we need to do this. I'm going to create a story or an epic, and away we go. But you probably want to be able to create those issues from other places. You want to have your own applications. Maybe it's an internal app, which just has a little thing floating around and say, I want to put an issue on this page. There's a bug here. There's a problem. So to be able to take Jira and extend it to everywhere that you want to create issues and then manipulate those issues. It's not just about creation. So in this case, we've put it into Confluence. Obviously, it's going to be one of our initial targets for this technology. But we're building this technology so it's JavaScript based. So it's JavaScript libraries that you can put into your own applications. So let's see, just very briefly to finish off, how that exactly works. So in this case, we're in Confluence, right? And we're looking at the issues we need to complete to get to beta. So what we're going to do is bring up the link dialog, but in this case, we have a Jira tab, right? And it shows me my history from Jira, different server. I bring it in. So I can bring in one issue. What if I want to do more than look at my history, though? I want to search. So within Confluence link browser, I can now search Jira, any Jira servers that are connected to this Confluence, find an issue, and actually drop it in. It's getting pretty cool already, right? What if we want to create an issue? So I can now create issues from within Confluence. Again, I'm not going to Jira. I'm not leaving my context. I just remember that, I've got to put a task in this page. I want someone to do that. So here I'm going to go and create that. And we say we need to write the beta release notes, drop it in the project, and we've got it in the page. So we've created, found, searched for 3 issues in Confluence very, very simply. That's not really good enough, right? What if we could actually see the data? So you can see in this pop-up, we've got all the data, all of the operations for the issue, all of the workflow tasks right in Confluence. And I'm going to actually play with this issue. So I'm done. I'm going to resolve this issue. I bring up the same dialog you see in Jira, but again, I haven't left Confluence. I see, again, it's been resolved. It's done. I don't need to leave Confluence. I put Jira everywhere, right? Let's look at another example. In this case, I want to add a comment to this other issue that I've just created. Again, I created it from Confluence. Now I'm commenting on it, and I haven't left Confluence at all. All I'm doing is playing with this JavaScript library that in this case is embedded within one of our applications, Confluence. So we think this is going to be really powerful in enabling both our applications to connect better, but also for you guys to be able to take some of that power and bring it in. So here you can see I've jumped to Jira, and I see the actual issue with the comment. It's all been done. Jira's all on the back end. But all we've played with is that very easy front end in Jira, right? I get all the workflow screens, all the operations. I can access data about the issue. It's secured between the 2 endpoints. And I am me. I just don't need to go to Jira. Again, we're saving you a whole bunch of time. So I hope that's at least a little bit exciting and shows you where we're going to go and where we can go. We're really excited to hear from you guys. Again, join the user task force if you want access to some of this data. To find out how you're going to put this sort of these libraries and links into your applications, into your plugins, how they're going to affect how you go. So with that, I'd like to leave you with that little teaser of where we see we'll be up to when we meet again in 12 months' time. I don't really have anything else to do other than bring up Jay for the Charlie Awards. So if Jay's somewhere ready, that'd be good. I can't see him anywhere. Oh, here he is. So I'd just like to again get 2 rounds. How's that? I'd just like to again say a personal thank you to everybody, to all of you guys for coming and making this an even more successful summit than last year. Thank you very much for buying your tickets, for showing your commitment to Atlassian, and for coming. Please do stay throughout the day. We have to cram a lot of really interesting content into the whole day. So for the people that are speaking at 4 o'clock, please try to show them that you're interested. Turn up. Their speeches are really good. Trust me, I've seen them all. They're excellent. To all of our staff who are here today and who've helped back in Sydney and everything, you guys rock. Thank you very much. To all the partners of those staff, again, from my wife to the partners of everybody else, thank you for not seeing us for the last few weeks. To the sponsors for helping us to put on this summit, thank you guys as well. We couldn't do it without you. And for everyone associated with Atlassian, you guys all rock. So without that, I'll bring up Jay to talk to you about the Charlie Awards.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for stealing my clothes. So I don't know about you, but I feel like I actually went to a rock concert last night. It would sound like it. So we're going to do the Charlie Awards quickly, and then I've got a couple of notes and get you out here. So most of you know that the Charlie Awards are sort of our annual recognition for just the great things that you do with our products. And honestly, I think it's as exciting for us as it is for the winners. So we're going to do this again next year. We did it the first year. Be sure to nominate your own companies if you're doing great things. There are 4 awards, actually, that we are going to award, and no one submitted for the final category, which is the one we all wait for, which is the X-Files Award, just the craziest use of one of our products. So I guess a note to you guys, get crazy next year. The other 3 awards are the You've Got Issues Award. Am I supposed to get off the stage? Is that like, okay, I thought this was like the Oscars. So the You've Got Issues Award, Best Use of Jira, the Edit This Award, Best Use of Confluence, and then the Menage a Trois Award, which is the Best Use of 3 or more products, right? So without further ado, we're going to talk first about the You've Got Issues Award. And the recipient of this year's You've Got Issues Award is Motorola, and representing on behalf of Motorola, Heather Martis. So you got to come on up, Heather. We've got to... You know, and I was actually going to have, where's the handheld? I forgot to grab a handheld.
We're one of the 4 o'clock talks today, too, by the way.
So right here in my...
I'm a 4 o'clock talk today.
And then and tell everybody what you did actually with Jira in 15 words or less.
We have the Jira plugin integrated with Eclipse and Mylan to get a task-based training library for your transition of development information. So you got the guy over here with all the knowledge, and then he opens a task in Jira and populates it with the Eclipse Mylan plugin. And then this is the person without the knowledge. They open it up, and in the same view of the world, they can see what that person had in mind, like what are the interesting functions and what's interesting in the code. So it's a training library.
Awesome. You guys can't count at Motorola, though. Oh, sorry.
No, just turning Jira into a training tool for developers.
Great. Congratulations, Motorola. All right, awesome. So next award is a Menage a Trois, best use of 3 or more products. And this year's recipient of the Menage a Trois award is Eye Contact and Kevin, Mr. Rock Band Poorman, right. Kevin, come on up. Let's hear for Kevin. And 15 words or less.
Okay. We use Jira, Confluence. We use everything but Crowd and Clover, and we tie our entire infrastructure in with it. So when you start work on a story that's been put in through Greenhopper, you can actually spin up VMs and create subversion branches, and everything happens for you in the background.
Awesome. Let's hear it for Kevin. Great. So last award is the Edit This Award, Best Use of Confluence, and the recipient is University of Health. They're not here, but if you go to the next slide, we're going to give them a round of applause after I explain what they've done. Basically, they've built, if you go to the slide, sorry, I know that took a little while. They've built Orthopedia, which is an online resource for researchers and practitioners of orthopedics. And there's a beautiful screenshot that they're probably going to go over to. There it is, Orthopedia. So with a big round of applause, University of Health. So I got a couple more housekeeping, then we'll get you out. So we'll just go stick to slides now. There's one other thing that we announced that we were pretty excited about. So I don't know, since the company was started, you can kill the music. There you go. When the company began, we've been giving out community licenses, which are free licenses of all of our products to open source projects and to nonprofits. And we've given away basically $34 million of software in the past 8 years. And it's something that all Atlassians are very excited about. This year we wanted to understand how those licenses were being used, and we wanted to give an award to sort of the best use of community licenses. So we put out some rules. We said if you're a community license holder, tell us basically what you've done with our software, and we'll donate on to your organization $10,000 from the Atlassian Foundation. So this year, thanks very much. Yeah, it was great. So this year, we're really excited to announce that the winner is Mercy Ships. Mercy Ships isn't here, but Mercy Ships is an incredible organization. So they basically have a fleet of hospital ships that they park in remote, struggling parts of the world, mostly in Western Africa, staffed with nurses and doctors. And they basically go on shore and give medical aid and health care to people that normally don't get it. So I think it's a great, incredible cause. They basically sent us this quote that talked about what the $30,000 of software that we gave them translated into. And you sort of pull out the bold, but it's basically helping a lot of people with medical need that wouldn't get it otherwise. So it means a lot to us, and to Mercy. Enjoy the donation on behalf of the foundation. Round of applause for Mercy. All right, this is it. Final stretch. I got a couple more things, and then I'm out of here. People asked who won the rock band competition. Embarrassingly, we didn't. Atlassian didn't. And it was a tie For those of you that couldn't hear a thing because it was distorted, there was a tie between actually the two random customer teams that came together, Team 1 and Team 2. It was a tie based on the iPhone app that I downloaded literally 5 minutes before the Rock Band competition that was an applause-o-meter. And then they said, well, what do we win? You didn't tell us what we're competing for. And actually, there are 3 prizes. The first thing that you've won, Team 1 and Team 2, is smug satisfaction. Congratulations. Congratulations. The second thing you've won is we took video and pictures. And so you will be embarrassed and vilified on our blog on Monday. All 8 of you, wait for that. And then the third thing you've won is we will be making 8 very, very, very limited edition special Atlassian t-shirts for you to wear. And so we'll send those to all. Greg, congratulations. You guys had a lot of courage. Last but not least, if we go through the slides really quickly, they're product fireside chats that compete basically at 10:30 in 20 minutes with the lightning talks. Lightning talks are going to be fantastic. If you want to talk to the product teams, it's just an open mic, ask them questions, get some feedback. Jira at 10:30, Confluence at 11, DevTools at 12. The lightning talks are basically 2 tracks. Projects in collaboration and DevTools that run simultaneously. There are completely isolated rooms, so there will be no crossover noise, but there's 6 talks each. They're 10-minute talks with a little Q&A. They'll be really rapid fire and interesting. Give it to us, right? So you've been giving feedback with those color cards. There's also a little survey here. Our URL shortener with Summit 10 survey. It's like 4 questions. Tell us what you liked and didn't like and what you'd like back next year, what you'd like us to get rid of. Where are the slides people have said? We will post them next week. We've been working really hard to get great video with picture-in-picture slides that we'll embed, and we'll get all that stuff, hopefully, not just to you, but to the people back home that couldn't be here. The last thing, user groups. So we're excited to have 21 worldwide user groups that are running right now, and that's growing. The OG leaders, stand up for a second. I know there's like 13 of you in the house already. OG leaders, give a round of applause. Yeah, that's awesome. So we want to help you self-organize. We'll fund your user groups. We'll help basically sponsor kind of the economic costs of bringing people together. We just want your help in your region getting people together to talk. We'll come to you if you want to hear from us. If you want to get started, URL shortener /start user group. There's a bunch of great resources on how to get going. And I think that's it. Is that the last slide? That's it. With that, it's great to see you again. We'll see you next year. Enjoy the show. We'll be back down here in 20 minutes. Thanks very much. Awesome, you guys.
That is fabulous.
Yeah, congrats.